Good morning, folks. Today we're going to attempt to cook a bowl of Assam Laksa. This is a traditional dish which you'll find in the state of Penang in Malaysia. So let's get to it. You will need to boil one mackerel, and you can see that that's what I'm doing here. Just any mackerel that you can get your hands on, really. This particular one is a Norwegian mackerel. Doesn't look very appetizing right now, but when you boil it, you'll retain the water or the soup, and that will be the base for this dish. You'll need some shallots, onions, cucumbers, something called belacan powder, galanga, and turmeric powder. You will also need a stick of lemongrass, dried chilies, and you're going to have to soak it in for a little while because it's dry. And the magic component for laksa is this thing called a tamarind block. And it looks like this. You can find this off Amazon. So we're going to put all this stuff together and I'll show you how. Okay, so we're moving to the next stage of actually putting this Assam Laksa thing together. As you can see, I've got that tamarind paste just soaking in a bowl of hot water, lukewarm water. I mean, it's okay. We're trying to get the taste out of this tamarind block. We're not gonna actually put the blocks in. We just want the seepage, the taste. Here are my dried chilies. They're getting softer. Ultimately, these dried chilies, chopped up lemongrass, shallots, and well, this is ginger. I don't think I'm going to blend these. So really, the lemongrass, the dried chilies, and the shallots are going to get blended together. Something else that I introduced was this thing called Vietnamese coriander. We're going to put the Vietnamese coriander into the mackerel stock that we've been boiling. And we're just going to leave it there. It will add to the building blocks of the Assam Laksa. And really, those leaves, these leaves, Vietnamese coriander, you can actually get it off eBay or Asian stores, but they're not consistently stocked. So I think that this is a critical ingredient. You're always going to need this. I have it growing in my yard. So if you can't get your hands on this, your laksa might taste a little bit off and not genuine. Okay, I think our mackerel is ready. We're gonna have to remove this mackerel. Uh-oh, it's already falling apart, which is good. Ooh, doesn't look very good, but we're gonna remove it. Um, One of the things, if you're not familiar with Assam Laksa, is that if you ever ventured to Malaysia, or in Penang specifically, and to any place where they're attempting to describe this dish, they'll call it a fish base or fish flake noodle. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to flake this. We're going to take all the flesh out and then put it on the side. But what I want to show here is that this little cauldron of goodness here, I'm going to add that Japanese coriander. Just add it in there, and it'll add to the stock, and just put it at a simmer. The one thing with laksa is that it's got a lot of building blocks to it, so this is one of them. Um, so just let it sit and let it boil a little bit, low heat, and we'll get to actually taking the flesh off of this beautiful Norwegian mackerel. So this dish is coming along good. What I did was that I'm soaking or blanching and previously I said Japanese coriander is not Japanese coriander, it's actually Vietnamese coriander. I don't think there's such thing as a Japanese coriander, but that was my fault. What I did was that I added some ginger with the added to the soup. What you would normally do here, if you had all the ingredients, is to put in the galanga, which is a form of ginger, very, I guess, more pungent ginger in here. But you can't get galanga, then you're gonna have to put some ginger, and I put some in there already. Also, I've taken out the fish, and I have pretty much taken the flesh off of it. This is probably the more labor-intensive part of the dish, since the mackerel is very bony. It takes some time. So what we're going to do now, put this aside. We're going to blend some ginger, some shallots, some lemongrass, and we're going to toss these dried chilies. Since they've been soaking for a little while and they're now soft, we are going to process it in the blender. I don't have a food processor, so whatever gets it done. So we'll put the shallots, lemongrass, dried chilies, and some ginger into this blender. And like I said, normally I would use galanga, but I can't find any. And we'll start blending it. So at this point, we've blended the shallots, dried chilies, ginger together, and dried chilies together. And we want to add, and this is what I do anyway, you want to add all those little powdery things that we talked about just now. So I added my galanga powder into the mix. I'm a couple of teaspoons, I guess. I added my belacan powder into the mix. And I added some turmeric powder in there also. So I'm going to go ahead and blend these together, and we're going to add that to the simmering pot of Vietnamese coriander in our mackerel stock. And this is, the continuing phase of building, the levels of taste that makes up the Assam Laksa dish. Okay, so it is nicely blended. We will now add it to the soup. And Assam Laksa is the color of this dish is supposed to be either off red to gold, depending on if you put more chili peppers or whatever in there. So that's up to you. I mean, you can put more chilies and it'll be redder. So as you can see, we tossed that blend into the coriander and mackerel stock, and we're just going to let it boil for a while. Okay, so the mackerel coriander soup seems to be boiling. It is far from ready to eat. This is just another step. The secret ingredient right now, really, as we talked about earlier, for Assam Laksa is tamarind. So you can't really cook Assam Laksa without tamarind. It's not looking very good right now, only because I've taken the block and I've soaked it, and it's pretty much disintegrating. We don't necessarily want all the debris in our dish, but we do want the liquid. So I'm just going to squeeze out the last bit of flavor from this tamarind block, and I'm going to strain it, and I'm just going to use the liquid, take all this stuff here, and we'll add it to the soup base. So really, like I said, some people use lemons or whatever, or limes, but you really need this tamarind thing to make the Assam Laksa dish. So here we are adding more tamarind extract, or I like to call it tamarind juice, but don't use tamarind juice in some of those. I think I actually saw tamarind juice as a soda, so don't use that. It has to be uh, it has to be from these tamarind blocks that you want to add in here. So the more of this stuff you add to your mackerel base, the tastier your laksa is going to be. So at this point, look at this. It's super hot right now. It's boiling. All the goodness is in there. We added that blend. We added the tamarind extract, which we got from the tamarind block. You can see the coriander in there. It's just letting out all its flavor. And there's probably a couple of slices of ginger in there because we can't find galanga. But really, this is what you expect to see. That color, the laksa color. Uh, before we finish the dish, we're just gonna take all this stuff out, because it's a mess. And we're gonna add the fish back in, but not now. I'm just gonna let it boil for a while, let all the flavors seep out. One thing that I did not show was the amount of sugar and salt that I put in this dish, and that really is up to the individual. This is by no means a very healthy dish if you have a health condition or whatever. But yeah, it's chock full of sugar, a lot of sugar, and a lot of salt. And you're just gonna have to, when you're cooking the dish, put more or less sugar or salt in there, and that's totally dependent on you. And with that, we're gonna move on to the garnish, because the other half of laksa preparation is the stuff that accompanies it and the correct type of noodles to use. So we'll come back to that. Okay, I think we're almost done. So I took out most of the coriander and miscellaneous leaves that were floating around in the laksa broth. I'm just gonna add the fish back into the soup, just to give it the last bit of flavor. And I think we're almost done. I'm going to plate and show you what home cooked Assam Laksa in North Georgia looks like. I can't convey how it tastes, but from all the little taste testing that I've done, and it took about 2 hours for this to get to this point. So, so when you see the final output, I think you'll be happy with it. Okay, so while the laksa broth is boiling, we're gonna have to go ahead and assemble the garnish for the laksa. The only thing that's surprising here is probably mint leaves. I got these from the yard. They just sit up on top of the laksa. It gives off a opposing, soothing flavor to the strong laksa taste. I think you're definitely gonna need mint leaves. The limes are there to adjust the taste. As far as onions goes, I prefer red onions, but I can't find any in my refrigerator, so I'm just using regular yellow onions. I use there's some chili padi. Those are the really strong Thai peppers, and cucumbers. Also, some people like to add some pineapple slices to their laksa, which I love. And this is probably a critical ingredient here, the noodles themselves. I can't find any Chinese ones, but the Vietnamese udon, these kinds, they're a little circular in shape. These are the ones that are most suitable use with this dish. And we're gonna chop all this stuff up, and then it looks something like this. We'll put that on the side, and then we'll finish up our laksa dish in a second. So we're just about ready to serve the laksa dish. I've chopped up the ingredients. I have some shredded cucumbers, onions, pineapple, some Thai chilies, and you got to have the mint leaves to balance out the heat. And I also got some limes. So when you put it together, it's on top of the noodles that I showed before. you know, the tubular, circular Vietnamese noodle. Um, so it should contain these ingredients before you put the laksa broth onto it. So we're gonna do that in a second. So here we go. I've assembled my Assam Laksa dish. Only took about 2 hours, but if you're stuck in North Georgia and there's a pandemic going on and you can't get home to Malaysia, this is what you gotta do. Look at it. Look at how rich that broth is. You know, with a mackerel base. This is a very, very spicy dish, and I recommend eating it with a Coke. This is how we would do it. This is how we would do it in KL, otherwise known as Kuala Lumpur. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. This is as comprehensive as it's gonna get. I've seen other YouTube videos about cooking this dish, and I've always learned from them. So thanks, other people that cook laksa. You have actually educated me, and have fun trying to do what I just did. Goodbye.